Hello, everybody. I am Brother Luke. Welcome to this Wednesday Bible study for the Church of the Eternally Secure, C.E.S. We've been studying the book of Revelation, and we are on chapter 16, verse 17. So get your Bibles out. We'll start that in a minute. First, let me say hello to those in the chat room. We got Brother Buford here, first of all, and Brother Tove too. Dolores Herman wants us to pray for her children and grandchildren to get saved, and for her fingers. They have blisters. So yeah, she needs healing, and more than anything, she just wants her family to be saved. Dolores is saved. She wants them to be with the Lord and with her in eternity. But don't we all want our family and friends? Our brother Randy's here. He says, high-speed dripper, he says hello. And Sister Celine is here too. Hi, Celine. And oh, good. Brother Sean's here, the shadow. Good evening, all. Good evening. And let me see. Celine says, I hope everyone had a good day today. I did. I had an appointment with a sleep doctor. I have sleep apnea. I mean, some of you, I'm sure, have sleep apnea. And so they ordered a new CPAP machine for me. So hopefully, when I get that working, my sleep will be better so that I have energy. Because I think what's happening is the reason my energy is so low is because of the sleep problem. So I pray that fixes the problem. Okay, thank you. Gail Wells is here. Hi, Gail. And mental health matters. Says, hey. Motive Mom, Virginia, says, good evening, all. And Randy says, it was 112 here today. It's now 108. Right now in Las Vegas, it's 108. I don't know what the high was for the day, but yeah, usually in Las Vegas in the summertime, it's going to be 110 to 115 most summer days. And so it's the kind of thing that I used to go out and do when I was young. I played sports out in the heat of the day. Wasn't that many years ago. I was still golfing in the summer heat, but now I avoid it. I just want to stay indoors in the air conditioning when it's summertime. Brother Anthony's here too. He says, hey, saints. Yeah, Celine says, Las Vegas in the summer seems unbearable. It's true, it is. It is unbearable. Pretty much, you know how some places have real severe winters, and in the wintertime, they just stay indoors. If they have to go outdoors, they have to bundle up, but they pretty much want to stay indoors when you have the extreme cold. Well, in Las Vegas, I want to stay indoors to avoid that extreme heat. But once the sun goes down in Las Vegas, even though the temperature is high, if you don't have the sun's rays hitting you, it's much better. And you can do things in the evening in Las Vegas in the summer. And I've been going out at 11 o'clock, even midnight, and doing some work in the yard and doing things because it's not too hot to do things. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the study. As I've been saying, Sister Renee, with her health, with her mother's health, and needing to help her mother get through this terminal cancer, and then also Renee needs to earn a living, so she's working on projects that will hopefully give her some money, and all those things are requiring her time. And So she will be here whenever possible, but she won't be here all the time because of those other demands on her time. So I've decided what I've been doing on Wednesdays, if Renee can't make it, I've been doing some other subject rather than continuing in Revelation without her. I thought I'd not do that. I don't want her to miss it. But on the other hand, we lose continuity and cohesiveness if you have large delays. It's like watching a TV series and then the season's over and you're waiting for a new season. It might be a year or two, and now when the new season comes out, you forgot what it was all about. And it's the same thing here. So I've decided that we're going to continue Wednesdays with the Book of Revelation. Even if Renee's not here, we'll just continue, and because we need to get this study completed. All right. So let me. As many of you know, we're using Steve Gregg's book, Revelation 4 Views, and we're looking at it from various perspectives. Most of you know that the history of dispensationalism, the viewpoint that we've all learned here in America in my lifetime, and pretty much almost everybody in America probably holds this dispensational futurist viewpoint on end times. But that viewpoint's very new. It's only about 200 years old. And throughout all of church history, that was never really heard of. There were other viewpoints, the preterist viewpoint, the idealist, and the historicist have been prominent throughout history. But the futurist of dispensationalism is relatively new. Randy says Renee still posts videos on her channel. Well, that's good. I'm glad she's able to do that. It doesn't require a whole lot of time to produce a 5 or 10-minute video, though, because she's trying to still stay in contact. She's not, Randy, leaving us, so don't worry about that. Eline's here too. Eline says hello. Leaf is here. Kalina Wyndham, hi. Oh, you like my haircut? Good. I cut it myself. It's real easy to do it on a close cut like this with clippers. But I've been cutting hair. I can actually be a barber. I don't have the certification, but I've been cutting hair since I was 12 years old, and I can give haircuts as good as most barbers. But it's hard to cut my own hair because everything is backwards in the mirror and I get all turned around. But using the clippers, I can even cut my own hair if I just use that. But I'm glad you like it, Kalina. It's easy. And I don't have to, maybe only every 3 months I have to do it. Okay, so now we're going to look at this not from the 4 views, but 3 views, the preterist, the futurist, and the idealist. We're not going to bother with the historicist viewpoint because it's just not, nobody holds that viewpoint today except Seventh-day Adventists. It's almost obsolete, even though it was the Protestant viewpoint at the time of the Reformation. All the Protestants held the historicist viewpoint. Okay. All right, so let's study these 3 viewpoints. You know my viewpoint is partial preterist. I think that most of the book of Revelation is about the 1st century until we get to chapter 20. That's about the millennial kingdom of Jesus. And that began in his first coming and runs until his second coming. So we are currently in the millennial kingdom. And then when we get to chapter 21 and 22, now we talk about the last day, the judgment, the new heavens and new earth. That's all future. The resurrection, the glorified bodies, all that stuff is future. But pretty much the first 19 chapters that happened in the past, in my opinion. But after I've studied all the viewpoints, that's the conclusion I've come to. Michael Anderson's here. He says, hi, Luke. Hey, brother. Brother Jay's here too. Fantastic. I've got a special surprise for everybody on Friday night. I'm going to be introducing a new thing to the Friday night programs. In fact, I might be introducing it Friday and using it on all of our programs, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. But I'll keep you guessing until Friday night. So make sure you're here Friday night to find out what I've got up my sleeve. Oops, I don't have a sleeve, short sleeve. Okay. All right, so here we are in Steve Gregg's book. We're in chapter 16. I'm going to read verses 17 through 21, and then we'll compare the different viewpoints, okay? The seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were noises and thunderings and lightnings. And there was a great earthquake, such a mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since men were on the earth. Now the great city was divided into three parts, and the city of the nations fell, and great Babylon was remembered before God to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Then every island fled away, and the mountains were not found, and great hail from heaven fell upon men, every hailstone about the weight of a talent. It's about 100 pounds. Men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, since that plague was exceedingly great. Okay, so one of the, I guess, two things that are really important that we kind of put in our head and keep in memory as we're reading the book of Revelation. One is that in the first couple of verses of Revelation, it tells us what is being written in this book is about something that's just about to happen. So we're told right away that this is not in the distant future. It's just about to happen. And I believe that the book of Revelation was written about 65 or 66 AD, just before the war where Rome destroyed Israel, Jerusalem, and the temple. And it's a prophecy about that primarily. So that's the conclusion that I've been talking about, and that's the partial preterist viewpoint. So in the beginning of the book of Revelation, we're told that, hey, I want to give you a time frame. We're on the cusp of this. The time is at hand. These things must shortly come to pass. So that's the first thing that is helpful to us. And then the other thing is that it says that these things are signified. So a lot of the language in the book of Revelation is symbolic language. Almost everything in the Revelation is symbolic. It's representing something. It's a dramatic way of making a point. And this kind of language is called apocryphal language. And the apocryphal style of writing was very prominent and popular at that part of the world between the book of Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, and Matthew, the first book of the New Testament. That 300-year period was full of apocryphal writings. And we also find apocryphal writings in Ezekiel, Isaiah, Daniel, all these books from the Old Testament that have the same kind of language that I just read here about things that happened in the past. And yet we know that the earth didn't, the stars from heaven did not fall from the sky. and land on the earth. So, but it's just a dramatic way of saying that this is what happened was complete destruction of that city. All right. So that's the kind of the ground, the framework as we read now. So here's the preterist interpretation of verses 17 through 21. The announcement, "It is done," in verse 17, brings us to the long anticipated culmination of what had seemed an endless stream of judgments. We finally see the fall of the great city, which is Great Babylon. Now, it's not about Babylon because Babylon didn't even exist at the time of this was written. You know, it existed in the past, and some of these things this kind of writing about the destruction of a city or a nation was written about Babylon. It was written about Edom. It was written about Jerusalem. This same kind of prophecies, and those places were all destroyed. But this is calling the city Babylon, not because it's Babylon, but because Babylon, it represents the kind of city it was, just full of sin and evil and false gods. And then it says, but who is actually intended by this designation as great city Babylon? Who is it really? Throughout this second half of the apocalypse, the book of Revelation, we have been tracing two alternative opinions held among preterists. J. Adams is among those who see the great city as Rome. J. Adams writes, verse 19 unmistakably points the topic under discussion, the fall of the great city, the city of the nations. The correct contextual reading is undoubtedly singular, and Great Babylon can mean nothing but the fall of Rome. So in the preterist camp, they believe that until we get to chapter 20, everything leading up to chapter 20 is about either entirely about the destruction of Israel and Jerusalem, or some preterists say it's partly about the destruction of Jerusalem, and then it moves on and talks about the destruction of Rome. Okay, so there's two different viewpoints in the preterist way of thinking, but either side would say that it's happened already. It's either completely about Jerusalem and Israel and the temple, or it's about both Jerusalem and Rome. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have any reason to believe that it's not entirely about Jerusalem. So that's where I decide that I fall on. Now, the fall of pagan Rome occurred in the year 476 AD, which would be the year of the fulfillment of this vision if Adam's view is correct. The other option held among preterist scholars is that the great city Babylon is symbolic for Jerusalem. And the catastrophe described here is thus dated AD 70, when the Romans destroyed the city and massacred or deported all of the inhabitants. A number of considerations collectively support this suggestion. First, there is the great earthquake in verse 18. The writer of Hebrews points out that as the giving of the old covenant at Sinai was accompanied by the shaking of the earth, so also the dissolution of that covenant would be accompanied by an even greater shaking of both earth and heaven. The old covenant vanished away amid great turmoil when Titus troops destroyed the temple in Jerusalem along with the city, it would be appropriate for the apocalypse to use the symbol of a great earthquake to depict this development. So they're saying that the idea of this great earthquake is just another way of saying that that whole area, the nation of Israel, Jerusalem, the temple, was just completely destroyed, the same as if the worst earthquake came in and just shook it and leveled everything. Okay? John Owen understood this earthquake in this way, quote, "It is therefore the heavens of the Mosaical worship and the Judaical church state with the earth of their political state belonging thereunto that are here intended. This was the greatest commotion and alteration that God ever made in the heavens and earth on the church, and which was to be made only once," unquote. Let me see if someone else has come in since I said hello to everybody. Okay, I hope everybody's still listening, because I'm going to ask for your feedback as soon as I finish reading the preterist viewpoint to see what you think of this. Okay. Let's see, I lost my place. Okay, it is further significant to the identification of the city in question. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see what. Okay, it is further significant to the identification of the city in question that it was divided into 3 parts in verse 19. A detail that has little discernible application to Rome or any other city than Jerusalem. Applied to the latter, applying it to Jerusalem, it is an echo of Ezekiel 5:1-12, where Ezekiel is talking about all these different things he's discussing, divided into 3 parts. Okay, where the prophet was required to shave his hair from his head, divide it into 3 parts, and conduct a symbolic action upon each part. 1/3 of the hair was burned, another third was to be chopped up with a sword, and the remaining third was to be scattered into the wind. Ezekiel was told by God, quote, "This is Jerusalem." So that's what God said was a picture of the destruction of Jerusalem. And in 586 BC, some of the inhabitants of Jerusalem were burned inside the city. Some were slain by the sword of the Babylonians, and the rest were scattered among the nations. That which occurred to Jerusalem in 586 BC happened again in AD 70. So if you were to ask most people who say they're Christians about what happened in 70 AD, that was one of the most important things in world history. Do you know about 70 AD? And you know what? You'll hardly ever find a Christian that will have any idea what you're talking about when you say 70 AD. It's unfortunate because it's the turning point. It's the point where Christianity came out of Judaism. First, it was for just the Jews, and then the Gentiles came in. But there was an argument about what role Judaism would play in the future, and they had to learn that Judaism served its purpose. In fact, Israel served its purpose, and that time had ended. So now going forward, no more Judaism, no more Israel. It's all about Jesus and the world as a whole for believing on Jesus. Okay, that's what was the distinction. And in 70 AD, God put an end to the nation of Israel. He put an end to Judaism. Israel didn't exist until May 14th, 1948. And I don't believe that it was God's plan to have Israel come back last century in 1948. I don't think that was God's plan. I think that was the dispensationalists that got political power and were able to influence the United Nations to give that land back to the Jewish people, because they hadn't been there for 2,000 years. It was that 2,000 years that was the Palestinians had all that land, and that was Palestine. It wasn't Israel anymore. And so I don't believe Israel is supposed to exist today. I certainly know that Judaism is not supposed to be practiced anymore. That's why God destroyed the temple. The nation of Israel, the city of Jerusalem, the temple where all the sacrifices had taken place was destroyed so that no more animal sacrifices could be done in Judaism. That means that Judaism couldn't be practiced if there were no more animal sacrifices. Since 70 AD, there has been no Mosaic Judaism practiced. It's all been Kabbalism, and the Talmud and Kabbalism rather than the Torah and Judaism. But if you ask most professing Christians what about 70 AD, they'll have no idea what you're talking about or the importance of what happened in 70 AD, the end of Israel, the end of Judaism, and now Christianity goes on and left Judaism behind. That's what happened. Jumt 22 is here. Hey, great to see you. Mental health. There's so much fighting. And of course, the fighting began long before that because of losing with God together. And he would would produce the Savior, the Messiah. But they got old. Abraham was over 100. Sarah was 90. No children yet. And she was barren. So she convinced Abraham to have a child with their handmaid, Hagar. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about it. Let me see, where was I? All right, so they had Ishmael as a son. Ishmael was not supposed to be born. God had a plan for Abraham to have a son with Sarah, not Hagar. And that son later was born in Sarah's old age. She had a son. It was a miracle. Well, God made it happen. And they had Isaac. And but between Isaac and Ishmael, they that gave us two branches of family. One became the Israelites, the other became the Arabs. You can see, and ever since then, they both felt that they had the right to the promises of Abraham, their father. Ishmael, his father was Abraham. Isaac, his father was Abraham. Ishmael was the firstborn, but he was not supposed to be born. That was Sarah's idea. Okay. All right. I hope everybody, we lost just a little bit of what I was saying, but okay, now I got off on a sidetrack, but I just want you to know that God's plan was to have the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, and Judaism, the religion, to serve a purpose. And then the Messiah came, and that purpose was finished. The Mosaic law and the nation of Israel, it served its purpose. But they were trying to continue on when it was time for it to end. That's what the book of Hebrews is about. Hebrews is telling us that you need to leave the temple worship behind and the animal sacrifices. It served its purpose. Now that Jesus was sacrificed, there's no more animal sacrifices. But between 30 AD and 70 AD, they continued doing the animal sacrifices. That was an insult to God, an insult to Jesus. So God squashed it, destroyed the nation and the city and the temple. Okay? All right. Can everybody still hear me? To make a comment, let me know if it's working right now. Okay, last one I have is 2 minutes ago from Jay. Anything else? Can you still hear me? Come on, chat room, say something so I know that I'm still live. Okay, good. Thank you, Hammy. Hey, Hammy, nice to see you, Hamster Nation. Great. Okay, so let me finish reading this. It says, so we're talking about in Ezekiel, when he's talking about 1/3 would be burned, 1/3 would be the sword, 1/3 will be just scattered. That happened in 586 BC when Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians. And then the same thing happened again. Jerusalem was destroyed again in 70 AD. Okay. In 586 BC, some of the inhabitants of Jerusalem were burned inside the city. Some were slain by the sword of the Babylonians, and the rest were scattered among the nations. That which occurred to Jerusalem in 586 BC happened again in AD 70. In another sense, the besieged city was literally divided into three parts of warring factions among the entrapped Jews. As Carrington notes, quote, this refers to the division into three factions, which became acute after the return of Titus. That's the general that destroyed the city, the Roman general Titus, the son of Vespasian. While Titus was besieging it from without, the three leaders of rival factions were fighting fiercely within the city. There was a civil war going on within the city of Jerusalem. But for this, the city might have staved off defeat for a long time, even perhaps indefinitely, for no great army could support itself for long in those days in the neighborhood of Jerusalem. There was no water and no supplies. The fighting within the city delivered it quickly into the hands of Titus. They're saying that the Roman army, as big as it was, to get through this city walls and get into the city and destroy it all, it may not have happened if it hadn't been for the civil war within the city. They'd be fighting among themselves and destroying their own food. And you read, watch the videos I have by Josephus on the war on my playlist. Let me pull that up real quick here. Let me get that for you. I mean, there's some people who might not have heard this part, so I need to make sure everybody knows how to access this. Present, let me share. Okay, I'm sharing right now the Church of the Eternally Secure YouTube page. And you just scroll down a little bit and you'll see Brother Featured Channels, Brother Luke. Click on that. And then if we scroll down a little bit to looking for this playlist, it's called 4 Views on End Times. The preterist, futurist, historicist, idealist. 3 views on the millennium. That's the now millennium. The millennium is now. That's the all-millennial viewpoint. The preterist, the post-millennialist, and the premillennialist view. So all that stuff is on this playlist. And if we look at the playlist and I scroll down to about the middle of it, there's 76 videos on the playlist. Scroll down to get to about the middle of it, and you'll find a part talking about the Jerusalem War. Okay, excuse me. Keep going. Here it is. When it says Josephus and Tacitus, watch that video. It's only 11 minutes long. A Temple in Flames, the Battle for Jerusalem, and then the Siege of Jerusalem and the War of the Jews, audiobook by Flavius Josephus. These are all historical account, a record of the war, all the details of that war. 3.5 year war. That's the 3.5 year period that's called the Great Tribulation. Okay? So if you go there, you get more details on exactly what happened. And if they didn't have that civil war within the city, Rome might not have been able to end up destroying them as they did, because they destroyed themselves within the city walls. Okay, come on, someone make another comment. Let me know if you're still there. Okay, good. Randy, thank you, Randy. Okay, all right, let me get rid of that now. Get back to this. This is the second time in Revelation that we encounter Great Babylon in verse 19, and also in chapter 14, verse 8. Whether this city is Jerusalem or Rome is further explored in our treatment of chapter 17. A fascinating passage from Josephus may shed light on the prediction of hailstones weighing about the weight of a talent. This is about 100 pounds and may not refer to literal hail. Many believe there is reference here to the 100-pound white stones hurled over Jerusalem's walls by Roman catapults, according to the account of Josephus. So when it talks about 100-pound hailstones falling on the city, it's really talking about, it looks like hailstones. They're big balls, but they're stones, rocks that are, they painted them white so that people couldn't see them coming in the sky, through the sky. They blended in with the sky. And they catapult shot them over the city walls to just, wreak havoc within the city. Okay, Jay says, Luke, I didn't catch all that. Could you recap how they destroyed themselves within the city walls. Okay, there are three factions or political factions within the city trying to keep control of like the government. And they were fighting among themselves, and it was so a civil war was going on within the city itself. And one of the sides decided that they were going to fight to the end, and they didn't want anybody to be able to surrender. So what they did was they destroyed the food source. They had food stored in the city walls there within the city. They had huge storages of food, so that if there was a siege, that the city could would not starve. They have plenty of food to last for years. But one of the factions destroyed the food supply to force everybody to fight to the death. But you know, you'll get that, Jay, if you watch those videos on the playlist I just mentioned about Josephus and Tacitus and the account of the Jerusalem War. You really, anybody who hasn't watched those videos is really missing out. And I thank God that he used Josephus. You study the life of Josephus and what he did in documenting that war and how he was captured, and basically he was adopted by the Emperor of Rome. That's Josephus. That's why the Jewish people hate Josephus so much, because they considered him a traitor. But he was just trying to save the city and the country by getting them to stop fighting. And if they had stopped fighting in the beginning and just, but they were determined to keep fighting no matter what. And all right, Jay, so okay, good, Jay. Yeah, please watch those and then get back to me so we can talk about it further. Okay, brother. Okay, that's one of the things that Josephus describes in his book, was that these they call them engines instead of catapults. You know, we saw that like in the movies, the catapults. Well, when Josephus was writing about it, they were not called catapults at the time. They were called engines, and so the catapults were shooting these giant stones that are 100 pounds over the city walls, and that's what this prophecy is about: 100-pound hailstones coming down. All right, so now that's the preterist interpretation of those verses. I'm just gonna do the futurist interpretation. And I'm not going to deal with the idealists. I'm just going to do the preterist and the futurist. If Renee's here, we'll go into all three of them. But when she's not here, I'm going to keep it simple and just do the preterist and the futurist. Because the preterist viewpoint is the viewpoint, the futurist viewpoint is the viewpoint that we've all learned. That's what we've been taught in the churches. That's what the Left Behind movies are about. That's what Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth, is all based upon, the dispensational futurist interpretation about the Bible. But that's a new thing. It's only 200 years old. John Nelson Darby invented it. And but that's what we were taught. That's what I learned. I taught it. I defended it. But only after people pressured me, challenged me, forced me to listen, to study the other side, did I realize that I was wrong. That we've all been wrong about it. That this is a prophecy about things that were just about to happen after the book of Revelation was written. And it was warning the local people at that time, this war is about to break out, that Jesus talked about over and over again. He talked about an army was going to come in and destroy the city because they killed the prophets and killed the Messiah. Okay. All right, let me see if anybody has any other thoughts before I go into the futurist viewpoint. Let me see. Let's see if I miss saying hello to anybody. Okay. All right. Hopefully my internet connection will hold up, and sorry about that interruption. We got, look at this. Natasha's here. Hey, sister, great to see you. Thanks be to the grace of our Lord God Almighty. I'm well, thank you. Sister in Christ, thank you. Thank you for being with us, Natasha. Sunny side. Sunny side up. That's how I have my eggs. Sunny side up. Okay. Let me see. I thought I saw somebody else here earlier. I didn't get to say hello to them. Oh, it's News Unit. Here he is. Where was it? Oh God, I just scrolled past it. Here he is. News Unit says preterist, futurist, and idealist views. Well, which one are you in one of these camps here? News Unit, preterist, futurist, or idealist? Well, I'm wondering which one of these viewpoints you hold. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care what viewpoint anybody else holds. For me, it's not something to divide over. But there are other people that take it too far, and they make it an essential of the faith that you've got to be a dispensationalist. All right, can someone? Let me see. It's been 5 minutes since I've seen a comment. Let me see if everything still running. Someone make a comment now, please, so I know that it's still working. Okay, I'll wait for the comment before I go on. I don't want to just be talking to myself. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Jay. All right, now I'm going to read the futurist interpretation. This is the one that you're all familiar with. This is what we've been taught in churches all our lives. This is the position I held, and Renee held it too. We both taught it, but both Renee and I, after studying it all further, we've left this viewpoint and went with the preterist instead. Okay, so here's the futurist viewpoint on verse 17 through 21. The seventh and final bowl is poured into the air. In verse 14, Walvoord agrees with Gabalin when the latter writes, quote, "This is Satan's sphere. His power and domination is now dealt with in wrath. While Satan was cast out of heaven, he may still maintain part of the atmosphere immediately above the earth, thus upholding his claim as the prince of the power of the air," Ephesians 11:2. What in the world? Okay, the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air. So now they think that has to do with Satan being the prince of the powers of the air. Well, okay. In addition to the noises and thunderings and lightnings, in verse 17, reported in various strategic places in Revelation, there is now described a great earthquake in verse 18, unparalleled in history as to its destructive effects. How Lindsay gives an explanation consistent with his interpretations up to this point. Quote, "The earth could be shaken either by a literal earthquake or by a full-scale nuclear exchange of all remaining missiles. I lean toward the nuclear conflict," unquote. That's Hal Lindsey. Okay. Stedman adds to this scenario, quote, "This judgment, particularly coming as it does on the heels of the Battle of Armageddon, probably describes the effect of nuclear war, which would release vast clouds of poisonous radiation upon the earth," unquote. How do they get that? One effect of this earthquake is the division into three parts of the great city. And Great Babylon comes under the wrath of God. The wording allows Great Babylon and the great city to be seen as the same city or as two different cities. Walvoord explains, quote, some have taken both references to indicate Babylon. Others have identified the first great city of the verse as Jerusalem. In other words, they think that this is still future, that Jerusalem is going to be the city it's referring to, but it's future instead of past. Whether this refers to Rome, which is spiritual Babylon, or as some have understood it to be a rebuilt city of Babylon on the Euphrates, it is clear in any case that Babylon is the special object of the judgment of God. The fact that the judgment is an earthquake seems to indicate that a literal city is in view, either Rome or rebuilt Babylon, and that's the judgment result, and that judgment results in its physical destruction, unquote. As a consequence of the earthquake, we read that every island fled away and the mountains were not found, which indicates, according to Ironside, quote, the utter destruction of every spiritual and religious institution that man has built up apart from God. It is the absolute overthrow of civilization and the complete wreck of all man's hopes to bring in even livable conditions in this world while rejecting the Lord Jesus Christ, unquote. Ryrie agrees, quote, everything that man has built will crumble before his eyes. Quite literally, the whole world will collapse around him, yet he will persist in thinking he is still the master of his own fate without any need for God. Yeah. Well, I think their interpretation doesn't apply to these verses. That their interpretation would apply to when we get to chapter 21, and it's the Lord returns, and we're looking for him to return on the last day. That last day will be the end of the world. But it's not talking about that in these verses here. This is referencing how bad it was for the destruction of Israel, Jerusalem, and the temple, in my opinion. The great hail, verse 21, if literal, is like none ever seen in history. Yet, as Beerwolf points out, quote, there is no incontrovertible reason for not taking the hailstones in a literal sense, as do Gavilan, Walvoord, Widener, Simcox, and many others. Hailstones of 100 pounds each could kill sinners, but not bring them to repentance. For we read the familiar refrain, men blasphemed God in verse 21. And this will be their dying posture. After this judgment, the next event in this prophesied in chapter 19, verse 11, where Christ himself descends from heaven to take over his kingdom on earth, writes Walvoord. Ryrie concurs. Quote, the conclusion of this series of judgments brings us to the second coming of Christ. This is described in chapter 19. But John, is first given a vision of the details concerning Babylon, which has been mentioned several times before. Okay. All right. So there's a summary of chapter 14 through 16. I'll read and then we'll be finished. But first, let me just look at the congregation, see what you're doing. Okay. All right. I hope you know, even though I learned the dispensational futurist viewpoint on this, I had a book called Dispensational Truth by Clarence Larkin. And the book was full of Larkin's drawings, and they're all charts, like pictures with timelines of all of the events as Larkin put it in pictures what Darby did in his text. Darby wrote the text, Larkin drew charts and illustrations to give you a picture of it. And I learned all that. And I studied it with, where is it? I have one here somewhere, a magnifying glass. I mean, the drawings were so detailed, you had to use a magnifying glass to actually study it. And I studied it so much, and I learned as best I could, and I taught it, and I tried to defend it. But when I got on YouTube, and people start listening to me and asking me questions, some people asked me questions about the end times and these things that I said, well, I've never heard of it that way before. They're bringing up these other viewpoints that I was completely ignorant. It forced me to study the other viewpoints. And as I studied them, they won me over because to me, it's much more convincing than dispensationalism. So, but to me, I would have never dreamed, never imagined of teaching the book of Revelation a few years ago. I would never have taken on the challenge. That's why there's an awful lot of pastors around the country. There was a poll taken asking pastors which subject or which book of the Bible they wanted to teach the most, and which one they dreaded, did not want to teach. And overwhelmingly, the book that the pastors did not want to teach was Revelation, because they were not confident that they really understood right. And that's how I felt. But not anymore. I finally feel like I understand it, and I'm so happy that I do now, because I love the book now, because it convinces, it's just more convincing to me that it's prophecy fulfilled. John gave us a prophecy. Josephus documented the war, and we see that Josephus's documentation matches John's prophecy. So we have this Jerusalem war, which is what people call the Great Tribulation. It's not some future thing we have to worry about, the Great Tribulation. It happened between 66 and 70 AD. Okay? So let me read just a couple of paragraphs. This is a summary of chapters 14 to 16, and then next time we'll begin chapter 17. Okay, thus concludes the final cycle of sevens. 7 vials, 7 trumpets, 7, what were the other one? Vials, trumpets, there's something else, but there's 7 times 3. Thus concludes the final cycle of sevens. The historicist view has seen the final overthrow of the papacy, depicted in these final judgments. The language is symbolic, referring to the French Revolution and subsequent events in European history, as well as some yet future, which bring the papal power to a complete end. So in the historicist viewpoint, it's their understanding of it. It was the Protestant interpretation during the Reformation period, after Martin Luther and Calvin and those people left Roman Catholicism. They came to the conclusion that the Book of Revelation was about the popes and Roman Catholicism. So they interpreted it all about that. Then the preterist position divides between those who see this as a continuation of the prophecy of the downfall of Jerusalem, and those who believe that that subject was left behind in chapter 11. The latter opinion sees this section as representing God's judgment upon the Roman Empire. So the preterist viewpoint has two camps. I think that the first camp, the second camp is correct. I mean, the first camp, where it's all been so far about the Jerusalem war. But then there are also preterists who think that through chapter 11 was Jerusalem, and then that from that point on through chapter 16 was about the fall of the Roman Empire. Okay, the futurists find in these chapters the very end of the tribulation period, just prior to the return of Christ. Unprecedented judgments will be sent again against the rebellious, Satan-worshiping subjects of the Antichrist. The climax will be the final great battle of Armageddon, involving millions of troops from the majority of militarized nations. Christ will bring this war to a sudden end at his coming. And then the idealist interpreters find a recapitulation. A recapitulation means the story is told over and over and over. A recapitulation of the trumpet series here, with an increase in intensity. These last plagues may be last in the sense of occurring at the end of the time, or merely in the sense that for certain individuals, whenever in history they occur, they are the last stroke of personal judgment from God. Okay, so we'll go to chapter 17 to 19 in the next, when we get together next time. Okay, let me look at the internet connection to see how the stream is going here. Okay, yeah, it looks like yeah, it's all working. I can see that the live stream is working fine. So we had one short, brief interruption, probably for 1 minute. And apart from that, everything's been good. So before we finish up, why don't you give me any thoughts, anything interesting? What was the most interesting part of this time tonight? I know some of you probably were just enjoying fellowship in the chat room. That's okay. But if you were listening and following along, was there anything really interesting? What was the most interesting part of tonight if you were listening? I'll give you just a minute. And also, if there's any other prayer requests, let me know. Okay. Let me see. Eli says, trebuchets as tailstones. What's trebuchets mean? Trebuchet, is that a typo, or is that it sounds like French? Three bouchées. Well, catapults. catapults. Okay, yeah, good. I'm glad you understood. You got that. Mental health matters, says Luke. I think the fact that Israel is no longer. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So at least a couple of you, there's something was meaningful to you. But really, I really wish that everybody would go through that playlist I've created on end times. A lot of it's about Revelation, but much of it's about Daniel. Also, the Olivet Discourse. Jesus is talking about this temple. Not one stone will be left on top of another, and all that stuff. All that stuff is in great detail discussed on the playlist, and it all fits together. And let me see. Laura says, I lean towards St. Joseph. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand that either. Dolores, that last word you wrote there, I don't know what it is. Just like Elaine's word of trebuchets. Trebuchets. Yeah. All right. Okay. Please pray for Renee. She's got a lot on her mind with her own health issues, her mother's financial concerns, project she's working on. And I had a long talk with her the other day. I just wanted to know if maybe that the time has come where her interests were in other things, and that she was not going to be part of C.E.S. anymore. I needed to find out what she was thinking, and no, she just reassured me that she's going to be here whenever she possibly can. She wants to be here, but these other things are preventing it. That's all. That's all there is to it. And so hopefully we just pray that the other things get resolved. Her time will be freed and she can be back here with us all the time again. But she will be here whenever possible. Okay. And let me see. Elaine says trebuchets weren't invented yet. They used catapults. Yeah, catapults is what they were called. They are. We would call them, but the catapults. And Josephus, when he wrote about it in his book, he didn't call them catapults. He called them engines, because they'd be able to shoot these things, whether it's giant spears or giant stones or balls of fire, whatever the catapults were shooting. Josephus refers to those catapults as engines. As an engine. Isn't that interesting? They were called engines. I think the Romans probably called them engines, and at some point, maybe the English language decided to start calling them catapults for some reason. Okay. Hey, why don't I play a song to finish off with here? Let's have a song here from our playlist, and then we'll be finished up. Go with okay, I'm looking. Okay, I've got one ready to go. Let me share it here. This song is by Brother Sean, The Shadow. and it's called "He Wrote My Pardon in Blood." All right, and I'll put the lyrics on the screen so you can read along if you need to. But his Sean's singing is so clear, you'll understand every word. Okay, so here we go.
My soul torn and tattered from the way I had lived. In sin I was fallen, then I fell in love when he wrote my pardon in blood. In my darkest hour, in mercy and power, he came to a soul that was lost. And just as he found me, put his arms around me and nailed my sins to his cross. And he gave my invitation to his sweet salvation at Calvary, where my sins were judged. And when I found I was helpless, he found me in love, and he wrote my pardon in blood. No longer an outcast, salvation came at last. The sin stains of my past were all washed away. For when I reached out for mercy, he reached down in love, and he wrote my pardon in blood. In my darkest hour, in mercy and power, he came to a soul that was lost. And just as he found me, put his arms around me and nailed my sins to his cross. And he gave my invitation to his sweet salvation at Calvary, where my sins were judged. And when I found I was helpless, he found me in love, and he wrote my pardon in blood. Yes, when I found I was helpless, Jesus found me in love, and he wrote my pardon in blood.
Okay, loved it. I loved it. Let me show you one last thing before I'm finished for the night. Sorry, go back to, now we're looking at the Church of the Eternally Secure page again. Let's scroll down to featured channels and look at the Brother Luke channel. And go down just a little bit and you'll see songs that edify and encourage us. Let's look at that playlist. This is the playlist that I actually listen to every day on my, and I go to sleep listening to it. And I've got these songs, not only each song is chosen for a reason because it has an important message, but I try to arrange them in an order that kind of tells the whole story. So I hope everybody will go look at this playlist, listen to it, and tell me what you think. But it starts off with Ralph Stanley's song "Oh Death," and this is a song it's a cappella. There's no music. It's just him singing, and he's singing about as though he's dying, and death is coming, and what the experience is like for him, being afraid and not wanting to die. And then the next song, you got the same man singing, and he said, this one's titled, "I'll Not Be Afraid." And of course, this song is saying he's not afraid of death because of Jesus. So here you have, starting off the way a typical person is, we're all afraid of death because it's the unknown. And of course, a lot of people have a lot of fear of what happens, if anything. And then those of us who trust Jesus, we don't have to be afraid because we know we're going to be with the Lord. And then this next one, "All My Tears," and also "Lead Me Home," they're all about someone who's near death, but they're eager to be with the Lord. And then you've got other songs about losing loved ones and who are with the Lord. And this one here, "Never Not Remember You." The man lost his wife, and this is a song that is for me very meaningful because I lost my wife 2 years ago. And it starts off by saying, "I know you're in heaven, but it sure hurts like hell." And that's what certainly I can relate to that. But each one of these songs, and then here's one of my favorite singers, the gospel singer. He sings all these classics: "Amazing Grace," "Old Rugged Cross," "How Great Thou Art," all these songs and others. And his name is Stephen McWhirter, and he sings with so much feeling. He makes all these old songs even more beautiful. Then you've got a lot of the classics also by other people. And just the whole playlist. And then, I won't go any further, but I'm just telling you, I listen to these songs every day, and I put this together for my benefit. But I believe everyone would be blessed if you save that playlist and listen to those songs. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. This is Wednesday, so our next schedule is Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. Friday night is the night we get together at 10 p.m. Eastern time for fellowship, and I'm going to be introducing someone new, and this person will be working with me very, very closely going forward. And I'm really, really very excited because this person probably is, there's nobody in the whole world that is more knowledgeable than this person. I'm going to surprise you Friday night. All right? So please come and join us Friday. And Thank you for being with me tonight. Bless you all in the name of our great Savior God, Jesus.